Ken Hitchcock joins us now on the show. Ken, it's Michael Kay and Don LaGreca. How you doing?
Good, guys. How are you?
We're doing great. How do you see this series? What's your feel on it?
Well, I think both teams have great resolve. So from a competitive game-by-game standpoint, it's going to be close. You know, a lot of good players in key positions. I think for the Rangers, this is a team that's going to check them harder than they've ever got checked before in the other three series. And for LA, I think the big advantage for New York is having a coach that's played a lot against LA, both in regular season and playoffs, and he knows how to play the Kings. And there's a certain way you have to play LA to give yourself a chance to win, and you can't all of a sudden decide you're going to figure it out after Game 3 or something like that. You got to know right away. And so LA knows how to play against them. He knows what works and what doesn't work, and I think that's going to be a big advantage for the Rangers. This his experience coaching in the West here. So these games are going to be hard on the players. Both teams have a lot of resolve, and it's going to be very interesting to see who cracks first here.
Hitch, the West was better than the East this year, much better in the beginning of the season. Did you see as the season wore on that the East kind of caught up just a little bit?
Yeah, I did, Don. I think the West, when you have teams that continually win and play in the championship final, and it's the same teams, so it's either L.A., Chicago, you learn a lot, and you mold your team after trying to beat those teams. So there was a lot of teams built similar to Chicago and L.A. trying to beat them. So you had more mature players deeper in the lineup, less rookies playing, really good structure and size, and I think that was an advantage early in the season. But then I thought the East started to grow up. I mean, there was some wild, times immature hockey played in the East, but then I thought they started to really grow up and Don, and I think they got better, and the games got harder and harder to play against it towards the end of the year.
Ken Hitchcock, the Blues head coach, is with us here on the show. Coach, in your experience, what usually wins out, power or speed? Because that's what this series comes down to.
Well, I'll tell you what, both teams will surprise you. I think there's a speed factor that the Rangers have, and the way that Elaine coaches them, he really takes advantage of the quickness of the forwards by stretching the zone, which, quite frankly, is going to give LA a lot of trouble. They're going to go flying into forecheck, and there's not going to be anybody around. And Elaine knows how to do that. He's really good at it. But I think New York's defense is a lot grittier than people give them credit for, and they can be hard on you. LA's thing is that there's no room to breathe when you play Los Angeles. There's somebody in your face all the time, every shift, all five guys on the ice. So you just have to learn to play in that atmosphere. And the quicker you can learn to play there, the better it's going to be for you. You can't be overwhelmed with close quarters like LA plays with. And, you know, they check well, and they create offense from that, and you're just going to have to learn to play through it.
Hitch, you had Nash in Columbus, and he's actually played well in this postseason, just hasn't scored a lot of goals. Knowing him the way you do, how do you think he's handled that, and do you think he can set up for being a main offensive cog for this team in this series?
That's hard, Don, because Nash sees, no matter what he's doing, Nash sees the top players. He certainly sees the top D. Mm-hmm. And so he's going to have a tough time, just like Kopitar is going to have a difficult time, because he's going to see McDonough every shift. Nash can help you in so many other areas. He's great on PK. He's great on the forecheck. He manages the game well. Even when he's going through stretches where he's still a streaky scorer, but even when he's not scoring, man, he can really have an impact on the game. And you know, he's played at a high level in big games, like in Olympics and stuff like that. You know, where the last three games are all sudden death. He knows how to play in those games, so I think he's going to be a factor. But I got to tell you, the top players on every team, they get sawed off pretty quickly in these series because they just get no time, no space, no room, and it's that second tier player, that second wave that ends up getting points for you most nights.
Now, when somebody gets hypnotized, Coach, there's usually a word that kicks them into that being hypnotized. And I'm wondering, the way you coach Nash, is that word Madonna, does that snap him into attention?
Well, I probably got sick of it, Michael. But, I was lucky because, you get to work with players like that, and then they change the way they play, and it really impacts their career, and they go from great players to winners. And, Rick's in the middle of that stage now, and this is a big step for him, getting to play in the finals, because this is going to help him for the next 5 years. And, Modano went through the same thing. Modano really grew up in a conference final in '98, and then he became a great player for about 4 or 5 years there, where he impacted every game in every way. And I think you're starting to see that with Nasher now.
You had Mike Richards and Jeff Carter in Philadelphia earlier in their careers. Did you see that winning potential in them, as these two guys for Los Angeles are going to play in their third Stanley Cup final already?
You know what? You saw it in Richards, and there were times where you kind of saw flashes with Karts. I got to tell you, I never saw this level from Jeff Carter, this maturity, this tenacity, this nastiness. I never saw that from Karts. I didn't know that was in his game, but we've had him in the Olympics now, and he arguably, probably between him and Jamie Benn, were the two best players in the whole Olympics. And he has a level and a maturity in his game that's really impressive. Richards he's going to be a big time player in the big time atmosphere now, but I got to tell you, I never saw that in Karts to this level. I knew he was always going to be a really good player, but not to this level.